idea that Jason Statham had that much of a sense of humor about him.
Well, he can be funny. I mean, like he can be. The Crank movies.
The Crank movies feel like a long time ago, though, at this point, in the Statham universe.
In my heart.
In the Stathamverse.
The Crank
they're
movies
always
are forever. Yeah. You're right. He tends to play more of the dour, serious guy. I think that's probably what a lot of people are going to like take away from this movie, is that he is funny and he can be funny and he's really good in it.
And I think that personality serves the comedy in this movie very well. I think they could have put somebody else in that role and it might not have worked, but because he takes himself so seriously and you're not used to seeing him play things for laughs, I think in a way he almost steals the show here, because some of his scenes, he's not in it a lot, but when he's there, he
makes an impression.
He really does. And it's not, he's playing against type. Normally, Jason Statham is the guy who can do anything.
The bald guy who's really tough and super strong. And in this one, he's the bald guy who thinks he's really tough and super strong and talks a good game, but is actually kind of an incompetent boob.
He's just a giant doofus.
Yeah, he's like Inspector Clouseau, if Inspector Clouseau looked like Jason Statham.
I would watch a Jason Statham spin-off of The Spy if we're making connected universes of every movie.
Right.
Where he's off on his own weird adventures. So, you know, in terms of Melissa McCarthy, Paul Feig comedies, this is a solid installment, but it's not, I had higher hopes for it maybe going in. I was maybe a little bit disappointed with some of the things. There are some funny jokes. I think character-wise it doesn't land a lot of its things. Her character is not really fully formed. It's a caricature, less an actual character. I mean, she starts off as a very sort of demure CIA agent who's stuck behind her.
She's not in the field. She's a desk. She has a desk
agent, and her desk is in the basement, and there are rats, and that's the joke, is that they keep her down there with a bunch of the idiots. And when the agent that she's working with is sidelined, she gets called into action, and that's the humor.
Maybe everyone but like Rex Reed would say that they're like a Melissa McCarthy fan. They find her funny, but it's sort of like you're saying, like how great is she as a leading lady, where she's more of the, you know, she's usually in movies like Bridesmaids, she's more of like the sizzle, not the steak, right? She's the one who kind of gets to come in with the zingers and be the comic relief, and be the crazy one. And here she gets to do that a little, as you said. She has these parts where she's saying, what was she saying? F this and S my D.
There's, I mean, you know, there's a lot of, she gets very profane, extremely vulgar, right.
But she still is sort of like the center of the movie. And then
very much so.
And then it's more about, like you said, who are the people that are going to be around her. She sort of who are in the Melissa McCarthy roles if this was another comedy where she would be playing like the sidekick, like the wacky kind of clumsy sidekick.
Right.
Or, like that, there's a lot of those parts. And so the question is sort of like, do you think she really like hits the leading lady part, or do you think you'd rather see her remain more in supporting roles?
I think she can do it. I think it's dependent on the cast that they've put around her, and I think to varying degrees it works. I think Statham is great. Yeah. He's not in it as much. I would like, and I hate to say this because this is very much a, like sort of feminist-driven movie. There's some very strong women. The lead villain is a woman, and the lead hero is a woman. And it's all sort of about female empowerment, so I hate to kind of say that Jason Statham is so
the best part was the dude.
It's Jason Statham, but I think he plays the Melissa McCarthy role of sort of the
traditional character she would play.
But he's not in it a whole lot. I thought going into this movie it was almost going to be a sort of buddy comedy, and he's not in the movie. He's in 15 minutes of the movie, maybe. Yeah. Her other sidekick is a character who I didn't find very funny, and I feel like that's part of the problem, is that I feel like if she had had a better supporting cast around her in certain parts, it helps. And I think when Rose Byrne is there, they play off each other very well. They've got a natural chemistry. They've worked together before. Yeah. So when they have scenes together, it works very well. But there are times when either she's on her own or she's working with her mousy compatriot from the desk agents. It doesn't quite work as well.
The movie, even though it is, a fun action comedy, a spy spoof, it is also sort of like a referendum on whether, not just Melissa McCarthy, but sort of women in general, like who are so often like put to the side, and you're not really allowed to be the fun part of a movie like this. They're always the scold, the nag. And here, like you said, like her character is literally like kept in the basement. You know, it's almost like she's being like kept down in a literal way by this like male establishment.
Right,
you know,
very subtle.
And yes, it's not. I don't think it's subtle at all.
No, I'm joking.
I know. And Jason Statham's character keeps putting her down. He's like sort of the typical macho bro who's like, you can't do this. You're not good enough to do this. And I think that that's very much deliberate. And that was the part about it that I really liked the best, is that it really kind of it pushes that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, there's the big fight. There's a big kind of hand-to-hand fight in the movie between Melissa McCarthy and this like evil spy. Who cares really? But it takes place in a kitchen, and it almost felt to me like, you know, what do obnoxious, sexist bros say? You know, like, get back in the kitchen and make me some food. And they're like, well, we're going to go in the kitchen in this movie, and we're going to have the most amazing fight scene you've ever seen. And it's a really cool, fun, action comedy fight scene. And to me, that felt very deliberate, all that stuff. I feel like that's the stuff that works.
Absolutely.
What I felt didn't work, and what I sort of agree with you, is that the spy spoofing stuff. Yeah, her sidekicks are kind of a mixed bag, but it's also like a lot of the spy jokes we've seen before.
Yeah. I came away surprised that she pulled off like that fight scene in the kitchen, and some of the other fights in the movie. She
goes for it.
All right, and
she's good.
Pretty adept at hand-to-hand combat, and some of the other things that you have to do. I mean, it's not like they don't shy away from the fact that in a spy movie, there's some physicality to it. Right. They don't just go, well, she's just going to be smarter than the guys. She's both smarter and at some point stronger.
She's tough too.
Right.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
a tough cookie. And I think the Statham stuff plays to that because he's so strong, but he's such a dummy that he's completely ineffectual.
I'm a real spy. I once drove a car off a freeway on top of a train while I was on fire. Not the car, I was on fire.
Kind of starting to freak me out.
The spy plot here was really kind of very underwhelming. Like, you really don't, weak sauce. You don't really care what's happening, and by the end of it, it's really confusing.
I still don't.
So
like,
convoluted.
If you quizzed me now on
Bobby Cannavale
what
and how
the plot is,
yeah,
I don't
what
know.
he has to do with Rose Byrne. Like, when you think about those great spy spoofs, you know right away what's going on and who the bad guy is and what needs to be done. And this one, there's a lot of rigmarole about who's on whose side and who's a double agent, who's a triple agent, and who's working for who and why, and ultimately it doesn't really pay off in any significant way.
It lends nothing to the movie.
No, so really all you're left with is the comedy, which sometimes hits a home run, and sometimes it's a little more hit or miss, lukewarm. I think some of the action is a little generic, and I think sometimes they're cutting around stunt doubles and that sort of thing, which is kind of unavoidable when you're making a movie with people who aren't martial artists and all that sort of thing. But it's pretty respectable. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to say that Paul Feig is a visual master. His strength remains in directing, characters and actors and making comedies and just, being really funny about that. But I would say I enjoyed the action more than I did in The Heat. And in that sense, it's a step up for him. It's an improvement. It's showing growth. So you go, well, if this is what this looked like, maybe his Ghostbusters will be, even more exciting. So if we're grading this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being Tammy, which I didn't see, but you've already said
it stinks.
And 10 being Bridesmaids, which I think we would both agree is a fabulous comedy.
Yeah.
One of the best of the last 25 years on our Screen Crush list of best comedies. Where would you rate Spy?
I'd probably give it a 6, which sounds harsh. I mean, it's hard because I feel like I think to myself, well, maybe I liked it. I liked some parts of it a lot. Then the other parts of it I didn't like kind of brought it down for me. It felt a little disappointing. So it's a warm 6. 6 may sound rough. I don't know where that goes on the Rotten Tomatoes scale, whether that's fresh or rotten, if you have to make that distinction one way or the other. But a 6.
I'd give it the same thing. I had 6. I mean, 6 to me is positive with reservations.
Okay, well then that's pretty much that describes my review.
It's a funny movie. I think you get what you're going in for. Melissa McCarthy is great. I think that she's a leading lady, and I think she deserves to be a star of her own movies and not just playing a sidekick. I think the movie definitely proves that. I do think she could use a better script in the future and maybe some stronger supporting acts around her.
If Jason Statham somehow finds his way into the Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy comic universe and gets into their movies, I would
maybe
be
he could play
completely thrilled.
the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters.
The Carpathian.
Gozer?
Yeah, the painting from
Vigo.
Vigo, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Janos, she could be the guy who had the painting.
Anyway.